Let me tell you the story of an ordinary woman whose quiet life slowly transforms into something extraordinary. Mother is a powerful novel by Maxim Gorky. First published in 1906, it is set in early 20th century Russia. During a time when factory workers lived under harsh conditions and revolutionary ideas were beginning to spread among the working class. The novel tells the story of Pelageya Nilovna Vlasova, a timid and frightened woman who spends most of her life in fear, and how she gradually becomes involved, led by her son. What begins as the story of a quiet mother eventually becomes the story of awakening, courage, and the power of ideas. At the beginning of the novel, Pelageya Nilovna lives in a small industrial town dominated by a large factory. Life there is hard and repetitive. Workers spend long hours in exhausting labor, earning very little money. Their lives are controlled by factory owners and overseers, and there is little hope for change. Poverty, alcohol, and despair dominate the community. For many workers, drinking is the only escape from their suffering. Pelageya's husband, Mikhail Vlasov, is one of those men. He is a brutal and angry factory worker who drinks heavily and often returns home drunk. His frustration with life turns into violence, and Pelageya lives in constant fear of him. She rarely speaks, rarely expresses her thoughts, and spends her life trying to avoid provoking his anger. The house feels more like a prison than a home. Her only comfort is her son, Pavel. Pavel grows up watching his father's cruelty and the misery surrounding him. Unlike many other boys, he becomes quiet and thoughtful. After years of drinking and violence, Mikhail eventually dies, leaving Pelageya alone with Pavel. At first, she fears that her son will follow the same path as his father. In the beginning, Pavel does begin drinking and behaving like other young factory workers, but something slowly changes in him. One day, Pelageya notices that Pavel stops drinking. He begins reading books and spending long evenings studying. His behavior becomes calm, serious, and disciplined. He starts bringing friends to their small house. These young men and women talk about ideas Pelageya has never heard before: justice, equality, workers' rights, and revolution. At first, she is frightened by these conversations. She senses danger, but does not fully understand what they are discussing. Pavel and his friends are part of a growing socialist movement among workers. They believe that the working class should unite to fight against exploitation. They read political literature, discuss philosophy, and organize secret meetings. Their goal is to awaken the workers and encourage them to demand a fairer society. Pelageya listens quietly from the corner of the room while they talk. She does not understand their books or their theories, but she sees something different in them. These young people treat each other with kindness and respect. They speak passionately about justice and about creating a better world for ordinary people. For the first time in her life, Pelageya hears people speak with hope instead of bitterness. Gradually, curiosity replaces fear. She begins to listen more carefully. Pavel explains that workers are poor not because they are weak or lazy, but because the system is designed to exploit them. Factory owners grow rich from the labor of thousands of workers who barely survive. Pavel believes that only collective action can change this system. At first, Pelageya worries constantly about Pavel. She knows the government punishes anyone who spreads revolutionary ideas. Police spies are everywhere. People can be arrested simply for possessing forbidden books. She begs Pavel to be careful, but he tells her that fear cannot stop the struggle for justice. As time passes, Pelageya's feelings toward her son's work begin to change. She sees how committed he is and how deeply he believes in helping others. His courage slowly inspires her. Instead of trying to stop him, she begins quietly helping him. One of the first things she does is hide illegal pamphlets and newspapers in the house. These documents contain revolutionary ideas that the government has banned. Workers secretly distribute them in factories and neighborhoods. If someone is caught with them, they can be imprisoned. Pelageya becomes the perfect messenger because no one suspects her. She looks like a simple, quiet older woman who has spent her life cooking and cleaning. Police rarely pay attention to someone like her. Slowly, she begins carrying pamphlets hidden in baskets or clothing, delivering them to different workers. At first, she is terrified each time she leaves the house. She imagines police stopping her, searching her, and sending her to prison. But each successful trip makes her braver. She begins to feel that her life finally has purpose. Pavel's group of friends becomes like a new family to her. Among them are Andrei, a thoughtful and calm revolutionary, and Natasha, a young woman devoted to the cause. They treat Pelageya with warmth and respect. They begin calling her mother, not just because she is Pavel's parent, but because she cares for them all. As Pelageya listens to their discussions, she slowly begins to understand their ideas. She learns about the suffering of workers across Russia, about strikes and protests, and about the dream of a society where everyone shares fairly in the fruit of their labor. These ideas give her a new sense of dignity. For most of her life, she believed that suffering was simply her fate. She begins to believe that change is possible. One of the most important events in the novel occurs during the preparations for a May Day demonstration. The workers plan to organize a public protest demanding better conditions and political rights. It is a dangerous decision because the government strictly forbids such gatherings. Pavel becomes one of the leaders organizing the demonstration. Pelageya watches with pride and fear as he prepares speeches and distributes leaflets encouraging workers to join the protest. She knows that if the authorities discover his role, he will be arrested. On the day of the demonstration, workers gather in the streets carrying banners and singing revolutionary songs. For a brief moment, the crowd feels powerful and united. But the authorities quickly respond. Soldiers and police attack the demonstrators, beating them and arresting many participants. Pavel is among those arrested. Pelageya is devastated, but also strangely proud. Her son has stood up for what he believes. His courage strengthens her resolve. Instead of retreating into fear, she becomes even more committed to the movement. Pavel is put on trial along with other revolutionaries. The courtroom becomes another stage for their ideas. Instead of defending themselves quietly, they use the trial to speak openly about the injustice of the system. Pavel delivers a passionate speech explaining why workers must fight for freedom and equality. Pelageya attends the trial and listens carefully to every word. She realizes that her son is no longer just her child. He has become a voice for thousands of oppressed people. After the trial, Pavel and the other revolutionaries are sentenced to exile in Siberia. It is a harsh punishment meant to silence them. But their imprisonment does not stop the movement. Their ideas continue spreading. Pelageya decides that she must continue Pavel's work. She begins traveling to different towns, carrying revolutionary literature. Chaos. She meets workers, listens to their struggles, and shares the ideas she has learned. The timid woman who once trembled before her abusive husband now speaks confidently about justice and solidarity. During these journeys, Pelageya discovers the immense suffering of ordinary people. She sees poverty, exploitation, and despair everywhere. But she also sees courage, workers who are willing to risk everything for a better future. Her transformation becomes complete when she no longer acts simply as Pavel's mother, but as a revolutionary herself. She understands the meaning of the struggle and believes deeply in its purpose. The novel reaches its emotional climax when Pelageya attempts to distribute pamphlets at a factory gathering. She wants to spread Pavel's speech from the trial so that more workers can hear his message. Standing among the crowd, she begins throwing leaflets into the air. People rush to pick them up. Officers push through the crowd and seize her, even as they beat her and drag her away. Pelageya continues shouting the message of the revolution. She cries out that the truth cannot be destroyed, that workers must unite and fight for their rights. Her voice echoes through the crowd as she is taken away. The novel ends with this powerful moment. An old woman, once frightened and silent, now fearless and defiant. Through Pelageya's transformation, Gorky shows how revolutionary ideas can awaken ordinary people. She begins the story as a victim of violence and fear, someone who believes she has no control over her life. By the end, she becomes a symbol of courage and moral strength. The title Mother reflects more than her role in Pavel's life. Chia becomes a symbolic mother to the entire movement. She nurtures the revolutionary spirit and protects it as it grows. The novel also explores the importance of solidarity. Pavel and his comrades believe that individual suffering can only be overcome through collective action. Their strength lies in unity and shared purpose. Gorky portrays the revolutionary movement not simply as political struggle, but as a moral awakening. The characters believe they are fighting not only for economic change, but for human dignity. They dream of a world where people are free from exploitation and fear. Another important theme is education. Many characters in the novel transform themselves through reading and discussion. Books become tools of liberation. Knowledge helps workers understand the system that oppresses them. At the same time, the novel acknowledges the risks of resistance. Arrests, exile, and violence are constant threats. Yet the characters continue their work because they believe the future depends on it. Pelageya's journey is particularly moving because she represents countless ordinary people who discover courage late in life. She never planned to become part of a revolutionary movement. She simply loved her son and wanted to support him. But through that love, she discovers her own strength. By the end of the novel, she understands that the struggle is larger than any one person. Pavel may be imprisoned, but the ideas he spread cannot be erased. Each leaflet, each conversation, each act of courage helps the movement grow. Mother remains one of the most famous works of revolutionary literature. It captures the spirit of a time when many believed that a new and fairer society could be built through collective action. Whether readers agree with its politics or not, the novel's emotional power lies in its portrait of transformation, the story of how fear can turn into courage, and how an ordinary person can become part of history. Pelageya Nilovna begins the story as a silent observer of life's cruelty. By the end, she stands boldly against injustice, carrying the message of hope even as she is taken away by the authorities. And that is why her story continues to resonate. It reminds us that change often begins with small acts, a conversation, a pamphlet, a moment of courage, and that even the quietest person can become a voice for something greater.
It was a very good book. Did you like it too? You can write your thoughts in the comments section. See you in the next summary.